time, everyone. My name is Omar Ammari, and today I'm joined by a very interesting guest. What I mean by interesting is that besides this person being a Lebanese comedian and actor known for his roles in what like Rami and Mr. D, as well as his comedy Good Friend, Bad Grammar, this is our first time doing an interview like this, where we talk with someone who is a prominent figure in the community, but isn't necessarily tied directly to mental health. Now, I first learned about him when I was scrolling through my Instagram feed, looking at reels related to Arabs and therapy. And I found one of his videos. It was like one of the first results, and I thought the clip was hilarious, but also very relatable and relevant to our organization and what we do. So I took it and I reposted it, and he then took it and shared it on his story. So I reached out to him, and I thought he would be a great guest to have on. And now we're here. So without further ado, I want to introduce our guest, Dave Merheje. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you for asking me to come on and speak. Thank you.
No, of course. So just to get started, I wanted to get to know you a little bit more. I wanted the audience to get to know you a little bit more. So could you share a bit more about your upbringing in Windsor, Ontario, and how your Lebanese heritage influenced your perspective and comedic style?
Yeah, Windsor, Ontario is on the border of Detroit, so it's a border town, so to the US, and it's not far. I think people sometimes think it's really far, like it's like a 4 or 3 hour drive into the US. It's where I grew up, I grew up down close to downtown Windsor. You can get through the tunnel and into downtown Detroit probably within 20 minutes. So we had like a very like close, there's like a tunnel on the bridge. So there was a very close, like I would say, influence in a sense. Like we had American TV, we'd cross the border a lot frequent. We'd frequently cross the border. There was, I think like in my school, my elementary school, there was like at the beginning maybe like a couple of Middle Eastern people besides me, I want to say, but like the Windsor has and had even growing up like a big Lebanese population, Muslim and Christian. So it was always like, and most of my family, immediate family lives in Windsor, like from cousins to grandparents, and so I grew up. There was a lot of shops. There was, a lot of like, there was the Lebanese carousel. So there was, a lot of culture in a sense. Like I was always surrounded by, Lebanese people and Middle Eastern people growing up. And I
Oh,
think that kind of
yeah.
like gave me obviously the perspective, outside of my immediate family.
No, that's very interesting. I wasn't aware that it was that close to the US. So you kind of got like the influence of the US. And it sounds like they had like a decent sized community of Arabs. And I mean, being so close to Michigan, which ha is kind of known for having one of the largest communities of Arab.
Oh yeah, I mean Dearborn and like it's a huge Chaldean, I believe Assyrian and Lebanese community as
Yeah.
well, and same over on our side. So, you're always like, I remember going to like Lebanese parties and like, yeah, it felt like there was like numerous shawarma shops. It didn't feel like it was something that was like not like not something I experienced every day. Do you know what I'm saying? Like I always like there was always Middle Eastern people around.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's awesome.
Very
So there
beautiful.
was like not really a disconnect between you and your culture. You were kind of surrounded by it.
Yeah, like I didn't go to Lebanon until like I'm like 44. So I went to Lebanon 3 years ago. Like we didn't visit. Like
Yeah.
my parents left and never went back. But I mean, in the city in Windsor, there was a lot of culture there because there was a big population of Lebanese people living there.
Yeah. No, I got you. So you're an actor and you're a comedian, and as you may know, it is very common in our culture to push the youth towards like academic endeavors, and either pursue like a career in law, medicine, or engineering. Given this, how did your family and cultural environment respond to your decision to pursue a career in comedy and acting?
I mean, I could speak for my immediate family. They were super, I was very blessed that they've been super supportive since day one, since I spoke of it and, wanted to pursue it. I've been very lucky that there wasn't like a pushback. Like my mom, I remember when I was young, she told me, she was like, because she had seen me perform. She's like, she's like, I'm not just saying this because I'm your mother, but I feel like you have a natural knack for it, basically. You're a natural up there. But she was like, Habibi, if you could just get me an education, and then you can pursue what you want to pursue. So I did go to college and graduate from St. Clair College in Windsor. So I did, and they come to my shows all the time since I started. Like, they're not like, they get mad if I don't invite them. Like, so they're
So very
like,
supportive, yeah.
very, very supportive. And like I would say my cousins and aunts, they come too. Nobody really in my family gave me any kind of like, from what I can remember, any kind of pushback at all. It was very, 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 very blessed for that. They're like
No,
super
no.
supportive.
I'm very glad to hear that. It's funny that you mentioned the education side because I feel like they just want you to be educated, but you can pursue whatever you want. So it's good that you just had the education. I
Yeah.
guess what they consider it as like a fallback, but I mean you've been pretty successful so far in your career.
I mean, I don't know if she was thinking more of a fallback. Probably didn't really ask her in detail. I think, my mom always wants me to be secure,
Yeah,
whether financially. So it's like, entertainment is something they're not like really knowledgeable in, as opposed to like doctor and lawyer or whatever other profession. So I think she just needed to know. I mean, it could have been in her mind like a fallback, but she knew how much I loved it, and
yeah,
continue to love it, that like I was really keen on just being that.
I got you. You was your major or like what you graduated with, was it related to what you're doing now or is it like completely?
Well, I mean, I went to school. I was going to college because at the time, my best friend Hugo, he was taking a year off of high school, and he was going to come into college, and so I took advertising first semester, first year I went to college, but then Hugo was like, I think I'm taking marketing, so I switched over to join him. So that's how. So then I just graduated from with a marketing diploma.
But I could see how that could be relevant towards your current career. Have you used what you've learned at all, like at some point?
100%, 100%. I mean,
Yeah,
I learned a lot of stuff about, like, yeah, there's a lot of stuff I even learned from advertising that I kind of, still remember, and I put it in. But it's like, what's funny is that years later, there's like the program, the St. Clair program, there's like where they honor alumni, and then I was able to get honored in the alumni program, but not for marketing and advertising. It was for comedy and acting, which I
yeah.
thought was very funny. So then
You know that.
yeah. So it was pretty cool. I personally, yeah, and that it kind of went back full circle, basically.
No, that's awesome. Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, I'm sure you recall that clip that we shared, the one where you were sharing with your audience about going to therapy. If you don't mind, I just wanted to ask, could you share what like led you to seek therapy or and how it has like impacted your mental health going to therapy?
I mean, I always thought about, the thing is like therapy now is it feels like more accepted by society, and like you're able to speak about it with your peers and your family. But I think back in the day, I knew I needed help. I just thought like if I got therapy and people, my peers in entertainment or something like that found out about it, I would be labeled like, oh, that guy's damaged or he's crazy. There was
Crazy, yeah.
that stigma towards that I put on myself. So then for a lot of years where I probably should have taken therapy, I was like, I ignored it and didn't because of that. It wasn't until maybe like 2000, I want to say 18, I can't remember the exact year. I was doing a podcast. It was a podcast that I would do with a friend of mine, Fivos, and a therapist, Bennett. It was called Beautifully Anxious. There's like episodes of it on Apple still, and we were it's about mental health and therapy, and he's a trained professional, and then we would tackle certain topics and with his professional guidance basically.
Yeah.
And I remember, I think we recorded maybe three, and I remember, I can't remember what I was talking about, like, you know, a certain way we were punished growing up, and I was laughing about it because using humor to, like, that's how I was doing it. And I think they were like, oh man, that's like, it feels like there's like a little trauma underneath that. So I think after that episode, I asked Ben, I'm like, hey, can I, like, confided. I'm like, oh, I should see a therapist. I confided in both of them basically that I actually should see a therapist.
Yeah, and you would say it helped you going to therapy.
Oh, immensely. I would say it's like probably one of the best things I've ever done in my life, over
That's awesome.
over, like, any kind of like accolades or anything like that. Cause it's just kind of like, it's like bettering myself in my
Yeah,
mind state, so that, yeah, it's super, super helpful. Yeah.
awesome. No, I'm very glad to hear that. And I remember also in like that bit you mentioned your brother yelling at you for snitching. Besides that, were there any other like cultural barriers or hesitations you had to overcome when seeking out therapy? Like, did your parents know? Did anyone like within your community, the Arab community, or like previous, things that you learned or were taught that caused you to be hesitant about pursuing therapy?
Yeah, 100%. I think just in general, like, I could be generalizing, but Middle Eastern people, that's not something in their, they're just not, they don't do that. They
Yeah,
weren't doing that. And it was like, they think it's like I feel that they think it's like you're disgracing their honor. Like, what are you telling this stranger about our family? You know what I mean? Because they do love you and they're doing the best they can, but, like, they didn't have the tools either. So they didn't have the tools to, navigate, and who knows, what kind of trauma they went through with their parents. So just like passing it along. So it's kind of like you're breaking that cycle, but it's like new to them. So I think it's like, I think deep down they think it's like they're offended because they think that they didn't raise you properly. Like, it's like this honor, but that's not the case. It's not about like them failing to raise you properly or whatever. It's more of like, these are things that are out of everyone's control. They need to be helped professionally. So
yeah.
it's not like I'm disrespecting you. You still did a great job of raising me and taking care of me and loving me. It doesn't mean I love you less because I went and got some professional help. So I think it's until they can navigate mentally that, or accept that and deal with that on their own. I think there's always going to be like maybe a pushback because they're not understanding what the purpose of it is. It's like they're just getting offended by it, but it's not. It's like, I don't think, I think in any kind of relationship, you try your best to do your best with that person. So if you go get a little help, that's not like a shot at them and their way that they operate or their personality by any means.
No, I've never actually like thought of it like that, like them getting offended. But I mean, it makes total sense. I feel like a lot of us are very like much about upholding honor and
Yeah,
upholding this image, especially like for
image.
marriage purposes. Like you
It's
don't want to marry into a crazy family and things like that.
I think a lot of times too, growing up, I would look around at my aunts and uncles and everybody really, and they were so concerned with the perception of the Lebanese community or another community of how they were going. But I think that's not important at all. I think, bettering yourself is just way more important than that. But I get it. They just want to look good maybe, or they don't want to look less, or they want to look crazy. There's all these like insecurities that they have about this community, judging them. But honestly, who gives a shit?
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. Just like
Yeah.
you mentioned before, how they shouldn't be offended because you're seeking out professional, like, mental
Yeah.
health treatment. They wouldn't get offended if you went to the doctor for like an annual physical or because you broke
No,
your bone. That's nothing that they could prevent through their up, like bringing you up and raising you. So,
exactly.
and you mentioned earlier how you use comedy sort of like as a coping, like a way to cope or like to get through like darker things.
Yeah, like comedy, like
Yeah, like it
yeah, yeah.
is.
I mean, that was the form of like, it was like comedy. For me, it was like it could have been subconsciously be masking also a problem, but also like using it as therapy as well. So
Yeah,
but I mean, for the longest time, I thought like I had to be frustrated or angry to get the best humor out of me. But I don't think that was true by any means. The thing of
yeah,
like, oh, if I'm happy or if I'm in a good spirits, then my comedy's gonna suck. That was a thing that I held on to way too long because I don't think that's true for
yeah.
me personally.
No, 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 I 100% understand. In your like stand-up routines, you'll often like talk or like delve into like personal and sometimes challenging topics. Like, how do you balance humor with sensitive subjects? And do you believe that comedy can be a tool for mental health awareness or even as a way to cope, whether it's for you or for your audience members?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like, it's a lot of it, I try to draw from experience. So if it's like, if I'm dealing with something and I think I could like, shed some light on it through humor, I will. And in the process of that, if an audience member finds that healing, that's like a win on both ends, I feel. But
Yeah,
a lot of times I'm just trying to like, I like to really try to, that's where I draw most of my material, or that's mostly where I want to draw my material is like with what's going on with myself and
yeah,
my emotions or my life. So, I think it's like me working through it, not only through therapy, but in a joke manner. And if that like resonates with the crowd and they're like, oh, that's helping me out, yeah, that's great. I think that's great. 100%.
mm. Yes. So there's like truth to the saying like laughter is the best medicine. Not maybe the best medicine, but it's a
It's a
way for
form.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It could
form
be like a form
of
of like,
therapy.
I mean, I've had that too with like comedians that I enjoy. I'm like, oh, if I'm feeling a type of way and there's a set or something that I see, it's like it's inspiring, but it's also like it helped me feel better.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Um, you previously mentioned, I remember when I was like looking into you, I saw an article that stated that like discussing your personal experiences has been like therapeutic for you in your comedy. Could you elaborate on how sharing your like personal stories has impacted your own mental health? Like, do you view like just talking to the audience as a way of therapy for you?
I just think in general, getting it out there, you know what I mean? Like I wasn't always the best at like, there are some things that, like I keep to myself in a sense
Yeah,
and it takes me a while to get that out there to people, like even friends. I think when you're talking about it, if something is kind of like festering or bothering you, I think the more you speak about it out loud, you can find that like other people might be experiencing or have experienced, but it's just good to talk it out. And I think a lot of times especially as like men, to like this idea, like this like stupid idea of like this toughness, this, you know what I mean?
toxic, yeah,
It's
toxic
it's not even
masculinity.
like I don't even think I think it's just masculinity. It's just like you're raised in this way of like, oh man, we got to be tough. I'm like, dude, you can be tough and express yourself emotionally. I don't understand why it's like if I'm tough, I can't express myself at all emotionally. Like, do you know what I mean? It's just like this thing that it should be I could do both. I could be tough, but I could also express myself. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to be like this like savior or this macho person 24 hours a day. So I never really like subscribe to that, I mean I mean now I don't at all. Now I'm like, no, if I feel like, I want to cry or if I feel like I want to express and be sad or talk about this, yeah, I'm going to do that. I don't really care how you perceive it if you don't think it's like, like that's not how men should act. It's for me getting it out there is super, super helpful.
Yeah. No, I like how you mentioned a lot of men, like in pursuit of masculinity, they kind of dehumanize themselves by suppressing something that's part of human nature. I mean, emotions, expressing yourself. And I think that I think, I mean, I'm not a comedian, obviously, but as someone who's watched comedy, whether it was on TV or at a show, I think that when comedians tell their stories, especially if it's something that you can relate to, like a lot of your jokes I could relate to as an Arab American, it makes you feel better and it makes you feel less pressure because you're relating with someone and you see them talking about it openly.
Yeah.
It makes you more comfortable to open up about your own struggles and your own story. So you're helping a lot of people whether you realize it or not. You're doing you're doing awareness. And are you like aware that you do that?
I mean, not like I'm not, I guess I mean, I've just kind of like I'm not thinking about it and
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I'm not like maybe I'm not going into it being like, oh, I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna
that's not the purpose. Yeah, the main
no. It's
purpose. Yeah.
if that's how it results, then that's amazing. Like if the
Yeah.
result of it is that, that's great because even speaking to like my friends and it's even speaking to the audience. Like I remember we had a Lebanese fundraiser a while back, years back, and one of the audience members was like, I didn't even laugh. And I'm like, we said it in front of a group of us. And we were like, he paused. He's like, it just kind of reminded me to go talk to my dad. So I think I remember hearing that. I'm like, oh, that's really great. You know what I'm saying? Because I think I was speaking on like my father and my family. And it's like hard sometimes. I know that feeling. Like as much as I express it on stage, it's really, really hard sometimes to talk and express certain things I want to express with my parents because I wasn't raised that way. Do you get what I mean? I wasn't
Yeah.
raised, to that much to express. So it's like I still find it hard even till this day I would, growing up in Canada, I would have Canadian friends that could like vocally, they would express.
Express yourself.
And I
Yeah.
would always be like, oh, and I still don't even know how to do that. Like I don't know how it sounds silly, but even the structuring so I mean, I'm doing it super slowly, but to say that, like, I think I probably do it a lot better on stage, which is kind of funny than in person. For some odd reason, I can express how I feel a lot of times more to my family and on stage as opposed to off stage.
No, I think it's hard for a lot of people to express themselves, especially Arabs. A lot of Arab families, they tell their kids to kind of like keep things to themselves. It's kind of suppressed to express your
Yeah.
emotions. So it's a beautiful thing that you can express yourself through comedy specifically and through what you do as a
Yeah.
comedian.
Yeah, 100%. Very lucky on that.
So I wanted to ask you, this is a question that actually I just came up with like right before this interview, but it's something that it affects me and I think it affects a lot of other youth. So there is a like an Arab stigma that has been prevalent in the US specifically. I know you're in Canada, but I'm
Yeah.
sure that it's reached over into Canada, like post 9/11 and beyond. There are a lot of like negative connotations and associations that Arab Americans have to face daily, whether it's at school, work, or trying to promote themselves. Has this stigma against Arabs or Arab hate ever affected you while pursuing your career, or have you ever felt that you would be disadvantaged due to your status as an Arab?
100% it's probably affected me or I've seen it or I've heard things 100% from audience members to you always get that thing too where like you'd audition for something and they would be like, oh, I remember they were like, oh man, we got our brown guy. And I'm like I'm not even brown. Like I mean, are you talking about are you talking about another? Like you don't even know. They think Pakistani, East Indian, and Arab is just like they're just lumping everyone
Yeah,
together. And they don't do that the other way. They don't go to white people and they don't go to a white guy and they go, I already got two white guys. They don't say that. As much as they act like, they like when white people get frustrated in entertainment that there's like they're hiring ethnic people. They're always like, man, they get frustrated. It's just like, yeah, because you don't have to go through the other thing. You've never been at a job where they've told you there's like, hey man, sorry, I already have a Kyle. I already
yeah,
have I already they don't do that. And I know they don't.
yeah.
If I'm wrong, then show me the facts of it. But they don't do that. So it's like, and then yeah, so I think it's there. I think there is racism, there is hate, and it sucks. You know what I mean? I think it's like, they're not, I think a lot of times in those situations, they're not educating themselves
Yeah,
in the
no,
culture at all.
I think a lot of Arab, especially in the States, even in Canada, I've had experience like, the effects of 9/11, post 9/11, what happens in the Middle East, all the stigma that propagates. And it's mostly people who are non-Arab that don't understand us. They don't really, I don't know how it is in Canada, but they don't educate you really on the
And
Middle
they don't
East.
educate. They don't do that there too. It's just like,
Yeah,
even when you go, they know nothing of the Middle East. They're just like, they don't do anything. I feel to educate themselves, like you said, at all. So then they're
yeah.
just firing off these like ignorant comments.
Yeah, no, 100%. And they just lump us together, like you said. They just think we're like the
Yeah,
Afghanis or Pakistanis, or even like when you fill out forms and they ask your ethnicity, you just have to select white because there's nothing really else that you could select. I mean, now it's changing. Like on the new census in 2030, we're supposed to be represented in the US, Middle Eastern, and North African, but for the longest time, it was very black and white. We're just lumped in with the Europeans or with the Asians.
yeah, and it's like also too, they're like, a lot of times I'd be at a restaurant or somewhere, they'd be like, "Oh, you don't eat pork, or yeah, you don't eat pork." And I'm like, "What?" This is before I reverted to Islam, and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, because but they don't know that there's like Christian Lebanese people.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? They just assume everyone's Muslim. So
yeah.
it's like, again, there's like this lack of, yeah, education.
No,
And
I 100% resonate with that.
it's like when you talk as well, when you talk to Americans about Canada and they're just misinformed about Canada, and Americans always go, they go, "Well, I mean, like, what am I supposed to learn?" And you're like, "Yeah, I learned about your country. I learned stuff about your country. I know stuff about your country. How come you
Yeah.
can't learn about my country? Like,
No,
you
a lot
visit."
of yeah, no, a lot of people don't take the initiative to learn things unless they're forced to learn it in school.
Yeah,
And
we're not even asking them we're not even asking them to remember, to know the little things. We're asking them to like know that we have a prime minister. Like, they don't
yeah.
even know that. They're like, "You have a president," and you're like, "No, we have a prime minister." So it's like, I think it's like, again, lack of education, the ignorance, and then you just form this theory and these stereotypes, and then you just spew them out, whether they're
Yeah.
on the internet or in person.
No, 100%. That's why I personally take the initiative to educate myself on other things, whether it's the Arab countries, other countries. I think it's important to be competent about cultures, countries, different environments from your own. I think a lot of people just kind of stick with where they are. So it's important to diversify and learn about other places.
Yes.
Given your platform and reach, how do you see your role in advocating for social injustices or deficiencies such as stigma around mental health, particularly within the Arab community?
I mean, if I want to, like, in both of those, to if I'm able to, show awareness, or, yeah, help out, I want to more than ever.
Yeah,
And
not
I think,
just with because there's a lot of like injustices or deficiencies within the Arab community, specifically like with what you do, like with art, you're doing art and you're telling narratives about like Arab stories and Arab Americans. Like I'm specifically referencing Rami.
yeah.
You're kind of like promoting the Arab American narrative or like what it's like to be an Arab in like society. And I think a lot of people watch those shows and they just ponder how it's so different from non-Arab life.
Yeah, and I think the cool thing with that show too, it was like a specific story. Like it was that
Yeah,
specific Egyptian family. Do you know
yeah,
what I mean? So it's not like all I don't know if it was like I want to show all like how like Arabs are all the same. It was like that specific that family, but there are stuff that we all go through that I think, people who aren't Middle Eastern probably saw and they were educated on. Do you know what I'm saying?
no, a
They
hundred
were
percent.
and
No,
it was like
no, go ahead.
yeah. Oh, just like I think it was like really, really cool. Like when I say cool in a sense that like, you don't really see that much of it out on TV like that. Usually it's like this, it feels like this negative stereotype or this like
Yeah,
racist. Do you know what I'm saying? Like this kind of like, especially and also with the Mo, the show, like it just feels like there's way more projects and creatives that are inspiring to tell their stories. So if
yeah,
like that, I think the shows help other Arab creatives, oh, I have a story of unique to myself as well. Let me try to get that out there so that like, yeah, like, it sucks that you have to say that it like humanizes like,
yeah.
instead of like, I was just telling a friend too, it's like, man, how many more movies are that like these war movies? Like, do I need another war movie, man? Do I need another American war movie? Like, why? Like, there's been like 40,000 of them. Like, do you know what I'm saying? It's like the same, it's like, because I don't know if that is I feel that's depicting Middle Eastern people in a way. I don't know how people are going to perceive that. Do you know what I'm talking about?
You're like, I know this specifically like the ones where the US is in like Iraq or like in the Middle East, and they just portray us as the villains.
Yeah, that's
Very
what I'm saying. Like
one-sided. Yeah,
it's still you're still telling that story. And now still it's just like, man, there's more to us than that, man. I don't know. It's just like why are we keep doing this?
yeah, no, Rami, and you also mentioned Mo, which is a similar show. Even though I'm not Egyptian, I resonated with a lot of the show. Even though I'm not even Muslim, I'm actually Christian. I
Yeah.
resonated with a lot of what was said in that show.
Same.
Because yeah, you said it yourself. Arabs were not like all the same. We're very diverse, but we have things that we can all resonate with. Do we have things that we can all agree with or we can all like relate to? And I think that's the beauty of our culture. And I think it's beautiful that we're able to portray Arab in a way that isn't like, aligned with the media where they're just shown as kind of like villains or evil.
Yeah, 100%. Like there's even a mom episode, I believe it was season one, where you're like, yeah, you do wonder, like, your mom, because my mom is like, took care of us and still takes care of us. It's like, what do you kind of look at her in that way, but you're like, what are her interests? Like, is she bored? Is she like lonely? Like, you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Because it's like she spends so much of her time like helping out and trying to take care of you that you even forget. Do you know what I'm saying? Because you're like, law, I know even with my mom, like if I'm like, how are you? She doesn't even tell me. She just doesn't
no,
even, she
that's
just ignores the question and just kind of
yeah,
moves on. So it's like, yeah, it's like there's that's and the fact that, she's always concerned that have I eaten food? I feel like a lot of like Middle Eastern kids can relate to that because their moms and dads, or specifically their moms, are always asking them if they're eating and wanting to feed them and stuff, and their friends, and
yeah. No, they're very focused on their children, but I guess a lot of times you overlook their own like well-being.
yeah,
No, actually have to look into that episode. Because I feel like I could resonate with that, just knowing the
yeah.
other mothers that are around me. So, looking ahead, are there any projects that you are working on or looking to work on that aim to further address like cultural identity, such as reflecting authentic cultural narratives through your comedy or acting?
Yeah, 100%. We're like trying to develop something on the TV side of that for sure. And then I think the next special I put out, inshallah this year, I could like that'll touch on topics as well. So those two things that like I could, to answer, yeah, to answer that question for sure.
No, that's exciting. Finally, what message would you like to share with individuals who may be struggling internally, particularly those who feel torn between their cultural expectations and personal well-being?
I think at the end of the day, like I understand, how the culture may be important and there's ways you were raised. I think it's like getting the help that you need is ultimately way more important, I feel. Your
Yeah.
health, your mental health, your physical health. If you want to, you know, also be the best version of you to yourself and others, I think just really I just think it's so helpful when you have the freedom to express yourself and work out your mental issues, and get help.
Mm.
Not only through a therapist, but through your friends. If you're able to like and family, if you're able to have that open discussion and you're able to talk about it, I think you can see that you're not alone as well. It's kind of very
No.
isolating when you just keep it to yourself, but then
Yeah.
you start talking about it, you can see, oh, okay, you're going through something like that too. You are as well, and it's just like you're kind of being like you're not alone. And I think feeling that way is empowering for yourself.
No, I love that. You mentioned isolation. A lot of people isolate themselves, but I think it's important to just take steps and even just if you can communicate and open up to people around you, that's
Yeah,
that's a good step towards healing.
exactly.
So Dave, that's it. Thank you for sharing your insights and
Oh, thank
experiences with
you.
us today. I very much appreciate it. Can I just ask you, where can people find you if they want to learn more about you or see your work?
You could go on YouTube. There's multiple specials there. And then my Instagram is Dave Merheje, Merheje, and there's like updates on there of shows and just content. But yeah, and YouTube is Dave Merheje as well. And then
Awesome.
watch Rami. You can watch. There was a movie I did last year called "Sometimes I Think About Dying" with Daisy Ridley. You can see
I
that film.
saw the I saw
Amazon,
the trailer, yeah.
yeah, Amazon, and you can rent buy on Amazon, Apple. It's on Mubu, so it's Mubi. But yeah, any that stuff's out there if you wanna. And yeah, if you and Beautifully Anxious is a podcast that deals with like mental health on it's on Apple. I think on all the streaming, like the where you get your music basically. But yeah.
No, that's awesome. Thank you for that. I think your openness and like humor contribute like significantly to the ongoing conversation about not just mental health, but like other difficult topics in the Arab American community. And I look forward to following the work and contributions that you will continue to make.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you. Honestly, I had a good time chatting.
All right, take care, Dave.
Yeah, bro. Yalla.